Hey there everyone, Huge Jim here, coming at you with the top 10 neutral rare cards to craft, okay? So if you're new to the game and you're trying to figure out what is good to craft, what is good to make for in general, then these are going to be good rare cards to create. There are other cards to make that are really good, of course, like, Loot Hoarder, Harvest Golem, and there's different epics that are really nice as well. But I'm just going to focus on the rares, and these are, in my opinion, the top 10 rares that you would like to craft early on in the game so you can get the most bang for your buck. Alright, so we're going to start off here with Knife Juggler and the top left here. This card is great because it's obviously a really good 2-drop. It's a 3/2, so it can trade efficiently early on in the game. And on top of that, after you summon another minion, you get to deal damage to a random enemy. And that's really nice because a lot of different decks can abuse that. Shamans can abuse that with their hero power. Paladins can abuse that with their hero power. You also have Warlocks who are constantly life tapping and drawing more monsters so they can continuously play them. And also Warlock Rush decks have a lot of 1 and 2 mana drop monsters, so you can get a lot of uses out of Knife Juggler. And it allows for just really optimal trading, and sometimes you can even remove monsters and get lucky where you'll get a monster down to 1 health and pick it off with Knife Juggler, which is really nice. And even in the sort of mid-game area where you'll see like Divine Shields and things like that, or even in the later game with like Argent Commanders, Knife Juggler can get rid of those Divine Shields, which is nice, so you don't have to waste an attack into it or something like that. So all around, Knife Juggler is a great early game card to craft or purchase in Hearthstone. Next we have Wild Pyromancer. This card's also really amazing for a 2-drop. It sort of acts as spell power in a way, but AoE oriented. So sometimes you'll have a spell that does 4 damage, but you need it to do 5. Wild Pyromancer will help fix that problem. But also, Wild Pyromancer is really great at handling rush aggro decks. There's a lot of decks who just put a lot of 1-drop monsters on the board and they just keep trying to rush you. For example, Warlocks in particular tend to do that. And there will be like a Blood Imp that's just really annoying, but you don't have any form of AoE to remove it. But let's say you have Wild Pyromancer and some spell to back you up, then perfect. You're good to go to get rid of that Blood Imp and maybe other monsters as well. So it allows for more efficient trading, which is very nice. But also you can get other fun combos, like you can use Equality, which Paladins have, and make all the monsters 1 health, and then Wild Pyromancer will wipe the board. So you can do things like that as well. So Wild Pyromancer, you can really abuse this card efficiently in many different decks. It allows for you to control aggro decks very efficiently. So all around, a really great card. You probably have seen it a lot in high competitive play, and it's because it's such a great card. So definitely worth crafting Wild Pyromancer. Next, Imp Master, and this is only for early on. Remember, you won't really see this later on in the game. It's not super competitive, I think, when you're trying to play more competitively. But early on, when you're first playing this game, Imp Master is definitely a great one to craft. And the reason why is, for example, if you're a priest, you have Cleric, and you want targets that you can heal. So Imp Master will keep hurting itself and summoning monsters, and then you can keep healing it with Cleric on board to draw cards. So that's perfect. If you're, for example, Warriors, they have cards like Rampage that buff a monster that receives damage or that is damaged. And then on top of that, if you have Frothing Berserker on the board, every time Imp Master is receiving damage to itself, then it's buffing up your Frothing Berserker. So, and that's really nice. And then you also have, if you're playing Druids, they have Power of the Wild, I think it's called, which is, it gives all your monsters, I think, +1/1. So you can do that and really get a strong, crazy board. Or if you're playing Shamans, you can do Bloodlust or Flametongue Totem to have really strong, efficient trading. So Imp Master can be abused in many different decks. And even if you're Warlocks, you can buff the 1/1 Imp with Demon Fire to get a 3/3. So it can be abused pretty efficiently in most every deck. So pretty good card. And Stormwind Champion early on in the game is often played, and it makes this card really good. Alright, next we have Injured Blade Master. This is a pretty good card. Not all decks can use this very well, but there are several that can. For example, Priest, of course, can use this because they can heal it up. If you are playing Shaman, you can use Ancestral Healing, which heals it all the way, plus gives a taunt for 0 mana. So you can turn 3 play this guy, Ancestral Healing, you have a 4/7 taunt, and that's really hard for people to overcome in the early game. Excuse me. And so that's really nice as well. And also warriors, for example, again, as I said, if a monster is injured, you can buff it with different cards that warriors have. And on top of that, if you have a Frothing Berserker out, you can play Injured Blade Master, buffs up your Frothing Berserker's attack. So can be used in a couple different decks, not all of them, but several of them, and it's a pretty nice card overall. Oh, and as I forgot to mention, Shamans also have their healing totem, so you can also do that as well. So pretty good card overall in several different decks. Next we have Twilight Drake. This card's really great for those control-oriented decks that, you know, don't play a lot of cards. They're not rushing their opponent. They're just sort of using spells to maintain control and waiting till turn 4 to play Twilight Drake. And then they get like a 4/7, a 4/6, a 4/8, something like that. And that's really hard to overcome turn 4 for most other decks. So it's a really nice, just general card to use in the early stages of the game when you first are playing it. So definitely worthwhile to run. Next, we have Defender of Argus. This card is so amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually gets nerfed in some fashion. I don't know. It's almost a staple in every single deck. You see it all the time because it gives 2 minions plus 1/1, which allows for efficient trading. Plus, it gives them taunt, which means you can put it on something like Sylvanas Windrunner. So they have to run monsters into that to activate its death rattle so you can steal one of their monsters or something like that. Or you can put it like on a Ysera, who's a 4/12, and that's just like impossible. That's like not impossible, but really hard to overcome. So this card is a real lifesaver against decks that are just trying to rush you down because you can create 2 taunts and buff them up, and then it's harder for them to get at your life points. You know, it's just an amazing card overall. You can use it in essentially every single deck. It's like really good, really good. Every single deck can use this card. Excuse me. Next we have Azure Drake. Every deck runs spells, and Azure Drake is great at allowing those spells to be more efficient at trading. But on top of that, this card already pays for itself when you play it because it draws you a card, and it has a good amount of attack and health. So it is reasonably difficult for your opponent to get around this card, and it's already paid for itself, and it also makes your spells that much better. Next, we have Gadgetzon Auctioneer. This card is pretty fun. A lot of decks use spells, but there's certain decks like Rogues, for example, use a lot of low-cost spells. Even Shamans use pretty low-cost spells. So there's many different decks that actually have reasonably low-cost spells that Gadgetzon can really benefit them. Even Warriors, for example, a lot of 0 mana cost spells. So, and Druids. Druids are really great too. So many different decks can abuse this card, and it's just a nice draw engine. And if left alone, it's really deadly to just leave it out, and you can draw so much and gain hand advantage, and it's great. Lovely! Anyway, next we have Argent Commander. This card was originally a 4/3, but now it's a 4/2, but still is amazing for a rare. You can just use it essentially as a spell, and it's almost always a 1-for-1, if not a 2-for-1. So it's a really efficient card at either rushing your opponent down and going for the win, or trading efficiently and just clearing the board and, you know, trying to maintain board control if at all possible. So amazing card. Almost every deck uses this. Well, they don't all use it, but you will see it often played in many different decks. And last but not least, Sunwalker, in my opinion, is really great. And this card would be even better if people weren't using Black Knight, you know, in higher competitive play. But even in the lower end, where not everyone has Black Knight, it's really great because a 4/5 with Divine Shield and Taunt makes it really hard for your opponent to get around that card. Because first of all, they have to get rid of the Divine Shield. Plus, it has 5 health, making it very annoying to, you know, get over. So the card will often be a 2-for-1. You'll often get rid of 2 of your opponent's cards to, if not more. Sometimes you can get rid of 3. So the card will almost always be a 1-for-1, which is really nice and incredible. So it can obviously be better than that if Black Knight isn't played. But I think it's a really great card. I think it's kind of underrated. A lot of people are beginning to realize it is a good card, though, and they're picking it up. But that is all for now, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on the really good rare cards This was my opinion, remember that, of the top 10 best rare cards to craft, early on in Hearthstone. Let me know your thoughts. I hope this is of use to you guys. I know many people who watch me live stream Hearthstone or watch my YouTube videos, they'll ask me like, what is really good to craft? And these were just some ideas for you to start crafting these cards to better your decks and to be more efficient with your dust and gold. Alright, that's all from me, guys. I'll catch you all later. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more content. Hope to see you all soon. Take it easy.